At work? All right. So I was reading a Jordan Peterson book, The 12 Somethings, and there's a thing there about people who don't access their anger or stick up for themselves, or however you want to call that, in negative situations, end up being bullied more. More bullying comes your way if you won't stand up for yourself. And then he listed why, like, when you're younger, if you're in situations where you're bullied to an extent and also have no recourse, no way to protest, you develop the feeling that like displays of anger are inappropriate. And I've made like a ton of videos about that. I always said like anger is a signal to think. When you feel anger, think. And I've also made tons of videos about the anti-Earls, like groups of people like that. It starts out small, but then more and more people start treating me like shit. And the idea is that like, for some reason, that like, if you don't stand up for yourself, that triggers more abuse, and then other people think it's fine to do it for some reason. I mean, I think that's fucking awful. It's awful, obviously. But the idea that like someone's treating someone else badly and you watch that and then you do that, in my mind, all that does is let you know who's a piece of shit. Like my idea is that, well, you stand up for yourself to those couple guys, and then they learn to respect you, and then you hang out a couple times, and then you become friends. I'm like, fuck that. But then I think what perpetuates the bullying is once someone's like said like a ton of shit to you, almost them being around you makes them feel like a piece of shit. Because like eventually I think a lot of people don't realize how much awful things they do and say. Like they don't keep track. But like eventually over time, especially when other people start talking about it, they realize they've been behaving that way for a long time. They want it to be your fault now. Like, why didn't you stop me? I've heard that over and over, a wide variety of negative behaviors over and over in my life. Why, if you knew I was doing that, why didn't you stop me? And I'm like, why don't you know that doing those things is bad? Why can't you tell when you're being hurtful or harmful or disrespectful, or like why do I need to like wave a flag, or why do I need to raise my voice and fight with you to prevent you? Like, then when you see me next time, instead of thinking like, oh, this is the guy that I could bully, when you see me next time, it's like, I better not say the wrong thing because Earl will freak out. Like, I guess people behave that way because if everyone's operating, in my mind, at like this lower level, that's the only way they can modify their own behavior, is by having this like fear reaction of like, oh, I can't do that to so-and-so because they'll do this. So that's what keeps me from being verbally abusive or physically abusive or cheating on my whoever. It's like, I'm afraid of the repercussions. So that's what's like, when people say like, oh, we had a couple drinks and then I fell into bed with somebody, and then they have a talk with their significant other, because they know they can talk. Like, at no point in time were they afraid of what their significant other might do. Like, I've had like more than one girlfriend ask me like, what would you do if I did this? And I'm like, well, I'm sure I would have a reaction. Like, do you feel like you might do that? And they're like, oh no, I'm just trying to see, like, like, you're trying to see how I would react so you can modify your own behavior to avoid negative consequences, as opposed to the decisions that you make might have negative consequences, and you would not want them directed at you. So you need to figure out how much it'll cost you if you do the thing that you hate, and you do the thing that you would never want to have happen to you. But I guess that I'm also might be like a bit of a selfish thing too, like from my part, like, like make my life a lot easier if people wouldn't talk shit to me. This one guy like apologized to me for like a couple of years of negative treatment. And I'm like, yeah, okay, man, just forget about it. I mean, if you want to treat me better from now on, I appreciate it. Thank you. He's like, well, the reason why I did that in the first place. I'm like, whoa, 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 don't. I don't want to know. And there was like he wanted to do it in front of people and some of my friends too. I think he wanted to be friends with the people I was friends with. And they're like, yeah, we really can't have you over to dinner if you're going to be calling Earl an asshole all the time. And they're like, well, hear him out, hear him out. I'm like, I really think that like he owes me. Like he's been treating me shit for a long time. And does anyone here remember me ever treating this guy badly? And they're like, well, no, but he wants to. I'm like, no, that's as far as I want to go. For years, he's treated me badly. For years, I've just treated him well. All I'm asking in exchange for that restraint is I don't want to hear the origin story of him treating me badly. Everyone ignored me. The guy's like, well, people were always talking about what an asshole you were, so I started treating you like an asshole. And then it took him 2 years to realize I wasn't an asshole and that they were assholes. And I'm like, all right, well, fuck you. Like, I don't like you. You've treated me badly for a couple years, and your reason for treating me badly for a couple years is other people treated me badly, and so you joined in. So under no circumstances am I ever going to trust you or your judgment or your character. You're a bad person. So, that's what he got after a couple years. I keep journals, and sometimes, like, at one point in time, I literally kept a journal for one specific person called the Insult Journal. And her husband said, like, oh, don't do that, don't do that. And I'm like, you don't tell me what to do. When your wife is insulting me all the time, you don't tell me how to handle it, And so I just write it down, and I'd write it down right then and there. And she thought that was funny, and then like sometimes she'd insult me and I'd write it down, and then I'd read back to her a couple of her insults, and eventually she's like, how many pages is that? And we just start flipping through this book, and it just makes her sound like a total awful person, awful behavior. And then with a different woman, this is a woman I was dating, she broke into my diary one day. And one section of the diary was quotes from her. And she was reading through these quotes, and she had to bring it to me. She had to admit to breaking into my diary because she recognized a lot of the things as quotes from her, but not all of them. She's like, I know I shouldn't have broken into your diary, but did I say all these things? I'm like, yeah, those are all quotes from you. Why didn't you stop me? Yeah, but so she wasn't even aware of some of the things that she would say. Because I think that a lot of people, they're saying things trying to get you to feel a certain way. So they just adjust their words, looking for that chink in your armor. And my armor is like one single plate of someone insulting me is having a problem. I don't think, gosh, am I this, that, or the other thing? If they walk up and said, like, Earl, I think you have something that you could improve upon. I'm like, really? Tell me what that is. If they say, Earl, you're an asshole, I'm like, no, I think you're the asshole. But so I get to the very end, and I admit the point, and that there's only so much shit you should take from anybody. And if you've learned to not give any shit back, it's probably because it was beaten out of you at a real young age. Like, you were helpless, and there was no point in protesting, no point in standing up for yourself. And that's not something you want to take to the grave with you. Like, there's people out there that need to be talked back to. There's people out there that need to be smacked in the mouth. Because no one's ever stood up to them. And yeah, I don't know, like, something about it resonated with me. Like, on one hand, I think I'm right, but on the other hand, I think that, like, like that one particular guy, I never had to like him, but it's at one point in time I should have said, shut the fuck up. Like he could think all sorts of bad things of me. Him and his friends could hang out, have beers, and talk trash about me. But him, like, bringing it to me for year after year, and doing fucked up stuff. And like, it was like some people are subtle about their fucked up stuff. Like, one thing I used to do, like, come into the break room, there'd be all these chairs, all these different tables, people kind of spread out, lots of empty chairs, lots of empty tables. I would always, like, on purpose, I'd always get like one section of the newspaper and then go read it by myself and leave the rest over there. He'd go over there and get a section of newspaper, come sit at a chair adjacent to me, and then lay what he's reading, his newspaper, across the top of my newspaper. And I'd protest, and people were like, Earl, you're always having a problem, which is weird. They'd say that when really, when I'm always having a problem with other people, and I'm not saying anything about it. So I'd say, like, hey man, why you just come over here to cover up what I'm reading? He's like, oh, am I covering you up? I didn't know that. I'm like, how could you not know that? Like, there's only two of us at this table. You had to walk across the room to get to me because I'm trying to sit off by myself. You pass tons of open chairs, you pass tons of people that probably enjoy your company, to the one person that you don't like. And everyone in this room knows you don't like me, right? Anyone think this guy likes me? People are embarrassed. They don't want me to stand up for myself, but they really have to admit that guy doesn't like me. And it is kind of weird he sat at my table. And it's, on top of that weirdness, it is weird that he sat right next to me. And then lo and behold, his newspaper happens to go across the top of my newspaper. So yeah, putting a stop to that shit would have been nice. But part of me also thinks, passive aggressively, part of me also thinks like everybody that knew that guy and the other people that fucked with me would not want that guy over at their house. They don't want to introduce them to their friends. They don't want to say, oh, what, my wife, I really want you to meet my wife. They don't. Like, that guy's a man, I'm trying not to say the C word over and over again. I don't know why that's coming to the forefront of my mind. Oh boy. All right, probably enough said, but like, I don't know, to stand up for yourself or not stand up for yourself, what's the answer to that? I don't know. Probably. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of shit, but you don't have to swallow nothing.